essentially, I felt like in God telling me to give that friendship up, he was telling me to throw that person away. And I was like, God, you don't want us to throw people away. So hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. So if y'all have been keeping up with my channel, then you know I said that 2021 was a rough year for me. And in one of my videos, I think it was my first Vlogmas video, I was expressing to you guys that I had had a rough week. And the rough week was on account of this situation. So me ending my friendship with one of my closest friends, that was the rough situation that I was talking about but not talking about. So before I get too ahead of myself, I'm gonna start by going back. So I'm gonna talk about how me and my friend met. My friend and I met in college. So that was already a crazy time for me. And you already know, if you've been to college, being in your college years is an experience. You're trying to figure out life. You're trying to figure out how to balance school, how to maintain your grades, how to keep up with your friends, how to keep up with your family, just all of that. So when I met my friend, I was like, oh my gosh, like now I have a college friend. We're kind of navigating through the waters of young adulthood life together. As time went on and we began to get a little bit closer, we started talking about things that we were going through in our personal lives. And it just so happens that we were going through a similar situation, like the situations almost mirrored each other at the same time. But it was just cool to have that person that knew exactly what you were going through and could empathize with you and could just say like, girl, I'm right there too. Like, I understand how that feels. That was definitely very cool. And that made me feel like I could open up to my friend. So both of us kind of started talking about our faith and how we were trying to get our walks with God right. We started going to Bible study. We started going to church. And if you know me, I am always down for Bible study in church. You just tell me when and where and I'll be there. So that to me was mind blowing. That was like my first adult friendship. And it was cool that we were not only experiencing the same things, but we were trying to get closer in our walk with God, because I know anything that is submitted to God, any friendship, any relationship, you're going to be standing on a better foundation than you would if you were just simply friends just because. As we began to get closer, I started to notice that my friend and I had a few differences. Now, when it comes to me, I am not somebody that usually likes to do a lot of things people my age do. I'm gonna tell this story. So my friends and I, it was Latin night at this club. And that was the first time I had ever been to a club, y'all. And it was Latin night, so it was Latin music, Latin dancing, Latin vibes. And I was just like, it's not for me. I had a horrible time. My feet hurt because I was wearing heels. And it was just like, no. But my friend, and this is no knock to her, she was into more of those things, like the going out. And you know, I just kind of equated it to us having personality differences. I wouldn't necessarily say at the time I thought it was core value differences. So I kind of just passed that off and I was like, okay, this is not enough to end the friendship. We are just simply different in some ways. As more time went on and more situations started to happen, I did realize that just because we were both Christians did not then mean that some of our core values would not be different. I was naive in a way to think that just because we were Christians, everything that we thought would be aligned and the way that we lived our lives would be aligned. I also meant to say earlier, in getting close with my friend and talking about my life, talking about my faith, I definitely felt like, okay, this is going to be a lifetime friend that I have. If I would have known then what I know now, I just realized that just because you and somebody are both Christians and both growing in your walk and everything seems great in the friendship, that does not guarantee you a lifelong friendship unless that is God's will for both of you guys' life. And realizing that finally that my friend and I actually had core value differences, I was just like, this is still not enough to end the friendship. But at this point, I'm really starting to feel like we are different. Like, the decisions that she's making, I don't necessarily agree with. It became harder and harder for me to be objective about the situations that she was telling me about, because I felt like a lot of things she was doing, she was kind of putting herself into situations that were contrary to God's word and to God's way. And not to say that I wasn't doing that, because nobody is perfect. That's not what I'm saying. But I do feel like as a believer and a follower of Christ, like, our goal is to strive towards walking in the ways that God would have us to walk, and kind of like taking up our cross and denying our flesh. And I felt like she was kind of giving into self rather than denying self. And I was on the path of trying to deny self. Yeah, that was just something that I was having to come to grips with. And it was just that weight of her kind of following after self and me kind of like trying to do my best to follow after God, I was just beginning to feel really heavy. One of the reasons I felt heavy is because I was not communicating this to her. Even though I felt this and I felt like I couldn't ignore it anymore, I didn't know how to communicate that to her without coming off as judgmental, which I never wanted to do. So that kept me quiet. But another point I want to share is, in a godly friendship, you owe your friend honesty. And I didn't realize, in me not being completely honest, I was dishonoring not only her, but our friendship. So it's like, how could I say that we were truly in a friendship when I wasn't being honest, one, with myself at some points, and two, like once I did figure out what was going on with me, communicating that to her so she had some kind of idea what was going on. As time went on, I began to feel that heaviness of not speaking up and telling her like, hey girl, I don't think this is a situation you should be getting in. Like, you're working on your walk with God. Is this really what you think, or the way in which you think he would have you to go? It became harder and harder for me to just be a bystander and sit there and try to kind of counsel her, but I wasn't truly giving her the counsel she needed. The counsel that I should have been given at that time was, like I said, the truth and love. In the midst of me feeling heavy, like, you know, after years had passed at that point, I was just like, God, are you telling me to give this friendship up? You are not telling me to give this friendship up. At this point, we've seen each other through our roughest times. We have time invested. We started off with our friendship being surrounded by you. This is not something you're telling me to give up, because essentially I felt like in God telling me to give that friendship up, he was telling me to throw that person away. And I was like, God, you don't want us to throw people away, so why would you tell me not to be friends with her? I would push that out of my mind. I'm just like, no, God will want me to, you know, keep on going, keep encouraging, keep being there. But like I told y'all, I wasn't even occupying the role in her life that I should have been if I was going to be a godly friend. Like, I should have been it or not. So not only that, another aspect of our friendship that began to weigh heavy on me, in addition to like me not being 100% honest and feeling the weight of her decisions, I was, at that point in my life, I was a bear all friend. You call me when you're happy, when you're sad, when you need advice, when you need to vent. And I didn't realize, in being a bear all friend, that I was, in a way, putting myself in God's place, because God is supposed to be the one that we go to when we're happy, when we're sad. Like, he is supposed to be our first line of contact. But I felt like I had to be there for that person because we were friends, and that's what friends do. You're there for your friend when they're up, when they're down, when they're happy, when they're sad, all of that. Like, I felt like that is what I had to do. But in doing that, I was walking on thin ice, because that is the spot in each of our lives that God is supposed to hold. So in a way, I had to go back, not in a way, I had to go back and repent and ask God for forgiveness for me trying to be her savior. I can't save anybody. And I realized in that friendship, you sometimes have to give people over to the Lord and let God do his work, because he is only the one that truly changes people. So you have to sometimes let people go, let God do his work. And then if that friendship is meant to come back together, God will restore it. And if it's not, it doesn't even have to be any bad blood. Like, you still pray for that person. You still obviously love them because y'all were friends at some point. And you just move on. All of those things combined together just put me in a bad spot. At the time, I don't think I realized fully that I was not being obedient to God, because like I told y'all, there were times I questioned, like, God, are you allowing this to happen because you're telling me that I need to walk away from the friendship? Surely no. But after that, I was like, okay, God, I want to hear your voice come down from heaven and tell me that I need to be out of this friendship. Because if you don't tell me audibly, I'm not gonna know what to do, because you know that this is not something that I want to walk away from, just because of all the things I told y'all. Like, we're close friends at this point. It wasn't like I wasn't gonna be chucking the deuces to an acquaintance. Like, this was my friend. So ask God for an audible answer. You know what he gave me? Not an audible answer. Even though God didn't give me an audible answer, I felt like he was in a way telling me, I'm not gonna tell you too many more times. I've showed you certain things. I've allowed you to walk through certain things. And just looking at the friendship as it stands, is this something that you want for your life? Where I'm having you go, do you think this friendship is going to be beneficial? And I'm like, no. So that was one of the hardest things for me to accept. And I know you're kind of like, girl, you're able to articulate everything that you saw wrong in the friendship, including like where you went wrong, where the friendship was going wrong, and just everything. But when you are close to somebody, it is like a death. Like you are mourning a friendship, you're mourning a person you knew, all of that stuff. And it does make it hard to just all of a sudden say, I'm gonna give that up and I'm gonna be okay. I cried and cried and cried like a baby over this situation. I can laugh now, but I mean, I'm being honest, y'all. Like, I legit did, because I was like, you're asking me to give up a close friend. This is gonna be hard for me. But once I finally realized, like, okay, it's time to let this go, that was even hard. So having that conversation with my friend, telling her all the things that I expressed to you guys, and kind of in a way blindsiding her, which was not fair. And I can own up to that in a minute. It wasn't fair because I wasn't communicating prior, so she probably was definitely very shocked. It just hurt me to know that there were so many things that I could have done better in the friendship, and also to know that God probably was telling me to give it up a little while ago, but because I wanted to hold on and cling on to that person, in a way, I was accepting the consequences that came with it. When it was over and after, we had our conversation, that burden that was on me prior was lifted, like almost immediately. Even though I still felt all the emotions, the heaviness and the burden that I felt on me was lifted. And ever since that time, I have not felt that specific way again. So I know that that is confirmation to me that that's what God was telling me to do. He was telling me to give it up. So I do want to encourage anybody out there who is a Christian and feels like maybe you're trying to walk in the ways of God. Your friend that is also a Christian at one time was trying to walk in the ways of God, but now is kind of just choosing to do them. I really want to encourage you to seek God and be okay eventually with the answer that He gives you. Walking through the ending of a friendship, especially to somebody that is close to you, is probably one of the hardest things I have ever had to do. But it has also been freeing to know that if God is telling you to give something up, it is always better to do what He's telling you, and God will not leave you hanging. If He tells you to give it up and you were just like, God, I don't know how I'm going to get through this, like, be honest with Him. You can say, God, if you're going to take my friend away, I'm going to need you to give me another friend. And because we're supposed to do life with people, God did not mean for us to walk through life alone. But the crazy thing is, God, when He tells you to give it up, is not going to leave you hanging. If He asks you to give something up, just know that God is the giver of good gifts. He loves you and He cares about you. He has a plan for your life. So He's just not going to tell you to give something up, and it's not going to be better for you and probably the other person. It's so crazy because the situation also taught me, even in the midst of our mess, God still chooses to just be so faithful and so amazing and bless us with things that we don't deserve. While I was still like kind of in the midst of trying to get it together to end that friendship with my ex-friend, God had already blessed me with a new friendship. When you think about godly friendship, that friendship that I have now is what I would picture in my mind, especially knowing what I know now and just living life. That would be my definition of a godly friendship. Makes you realize, like, God, you know what you're doing. So the next time you tell me to be obedient, I'm going to be obedient. I did want to say this, in being obedient with friendships or relationships that God has in your life, I feel like that is so crucial. Now that I've seen what it's like to be disobedient and to continue to fight for things that I should have let go, I didn't even realize, what if I held up a friendship that I could have had with my friend now, or just even other friendships, on account of still holding on to my old friend. It's just so crazy because you don't know when God tells you to be obedient, what He has on the other side of that obedience. And it could be like the friendship that you were praying for, the friendship that you were truly like seeking God for, but that may not come until you give up the thing that God says like no to, or the friendship that He wants you to walk away from. If God is telling you to be obedient and leave a certain friendship, there is so much joy, freedom, peace on the other side of doing what He told you to do. And this is outside of Him even blessing you with a friend, even though that is incredible and you are gonna need that. It's just like to know that you were obedient and God honors your obedience is amazing to me. Being obedient to God is always better than whatever you have, whatever you're holding on to. Being obedient is better. Thank you so much for watching my video. This video was no knock to my old friend. I just kind of wanted to share my story and hopes that it will help somebody else. And there is freedom in sharing. I look forward to sharing so much more with y'all and having more open and honest faith chats. If there's a topic that you would like me to talk about on my channel, maybe bring somebody else on, please let me know and I will work on that for y'all. Thank you for watching my channel, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.